Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to have everybody here today. I'm going to be asking a few questions to our missionary kids today. I'm the only male representing us today. So I was asked to ask the questions, and I figured if I'm asking questions, I don't have to answer any. So I happily took her up on this. So I've got a few questions we're going to make sure to hear from everybody today. I want to start off with Hannah and Callie. So if we can get them the microphones there. The first question we have here is, how can we pray for missionary kids, Hannah and Callie?
I would start to say, just echoing what Ian said, of praying for them as they go from country to country. There's culture, there's you're with your family, but there is that lonely aspect. For my brother and sister, when they got to Indonesia, there wasn't a church yet, there wasn't another family there yet. So they had to make friends there. They had to get accustomed kind of by themselves. They had family, but they had to get accustomed there by themselves. But then, you look at the Snows, Callie, Darcy, and Grant, when they came back, it wasn't going to a foreign country, but yes, they were coming back to America, but they still had to get accustomed to everything here. They knew people here, but they had to make those connections, make those friendships. So I really think, for every missionary kid, it's different. But just think, if they're coming back home, they've probably been gone for over a year, sometimes 2-3 years. Pray that they make friends here, make connections here, and that when they go back, they make friends and connections there because, God wants us to have these friendships, and he wants us to have this Christian community, and I think it's really important. So just pray that they can find connections, Christian community, where they are. It doesn't matter if they're on the foreign field, if they're here, but just wherever they are.
For me, I would definitely say pray for peace for them because their parents are making so many decisions and you just sort of have to go with it, and you're not really even considered, you are considered, but you still have to do what they say, and it's not always fun. And so I have definitely experienced this because it's moving back here from the UK, it was definitely I see the need there. I see we're doing things, and I don't really understand why we're moving back because it was I don't know, America has churches, and aren't we trying to be church planting missionaries? But it's your parents are saying oh yeah, God told us to do this, and God's telling us to move, and I'm sort of I don't really see that, but you have to just live with the consequences of it. And so just definitely pray for peace and understanding that they would just obey their parents with joy. That's always so difficult, and it's I know I need to obey my parents in this, but I really don't want to, and you sort of just have to because you don't really have a choice. So that's definitely what I would say for that.
All right, well, thank you for that. Second question here. This one's going to be for Grace and Darcy, so if we can get them the mics. Discuss a family or individual on the field that you personally saw God work in. We'll start with Darcy.
Well, this is probably one of my favorite questions out of the list was because it's just these are the people that you love as a missionary kid, and it's the people you grew up with, the people in your church, and that you see God work in tremendously. So what comes to mind is two teenagers in our church in London, which is the church that we spent most of our time in. One of the kids' names is Jack, and then the girl is Boomy, and it was just amazing. Both of their families were Christian, but when they came to church, they just threw themselves into everything. They were always there, even though they were so involved with school and all their other lives, but they really took time to sacrifice and to serve, and it was just amazing to watch them learn from the Word, and they were so hungry to learn, and then they really wanted to serve, and the Lord really worked through them, and it's just, they were my best friends, so it's just amazing to see how God worked through that, and how I would not have met them if I wasn't a missionary kid, so I'm super grateful for that.
I just told, in the Bolivia presentation, I was able to tell a story that had a big impact in my life as a teenager. And as I was thinking of more stories, there's just so many to pick from. It's such a blessing to see how many families have gotten saved and how many friends we have through the churches there. But I thought of one this morning, and in our first church, there was actually a Mormon guy coming, and I think he was just coming, I don't know if he was spying or kind of seeing what was up with the church, but he actually invited a guy named Pablo. And Pablo started coming to church. He started coming faithfully. He eventually got saved. He started inviting his family, which they weren't too excited about him being so faithful to church. But in Bolivia, education is such a big thing, and it's literally an expectation for your kids to have a degree. And Pablo was in his last year of college, and so his mom and sister were very adamant about him finishing, but he decided to surrender to full-time ministry. And you can imagine they were not happy about that. They actually even threatened to kick him out of the house. You know, a lot of people, they said they wouldn't support him, but a lot of people kind of take back their decision from being in ministry. But Pablo stood strong, and he's actually the second pastor the pastor of the second church, Iglesia Bautista Visión Quiacoyo. And so now it's interesting to see the mom and daughter have gotten saved, and now they say, oh, he is the best pastor. We just love hearing him preach. And the whole family has been able to get saved, and they're inviting people to church. And so that's another story that's just amazing to see.
Amen. Thank you for that. Emily and Catherine, my dearly beloved sister there, I've got a question for y'all. How were you involved in church planting on the field?
Well, I would say had the unique opportunity to be involved in a lot at a young age. A lot of times in an American church, there's lots of workers or older people that are running things and are leading ministries. But when you're starting a church, there's not a whole lot of people to help. So I was very grateful for that opportunity. I know most kids would never dream of maybe running the nursery or helping in children's church or starting a Sunday school class. But every part of my life and the different parts of our church and ministry, I was able to help in a different way, whether that was in the nursery or helping in children's church, or even out towards the end of high school, I was able to do a Sunday school class with the young teen girls in our church, which was such a great opportunity for me to grow with my walk with the Lord as I was teaching and with those girls.
Church planning is kind of wild. Just think about you and your immediate family in a storefront with the door open, and you just do a church service. And it's strange because it's just you. And the first time you have a visitor, it's like, oh my goodness, somebody's here. Did you see? Somebody came in. So if you have no one, you kind of have to do everything. And usually you get a bunch of kids at the beginning and then maybe a couple single women. So I think at the age of 12, I was in charge of like the kids ministry, which had, maybe a dozen children. But it was getting there an hour early to clean because there's no one else to clean, sweeping up the cigarette butts, picking up the cans outside and getting the dirt out, picking up the dog poop because we have a lot of stray dogs, and then opening the doors and dusting everything, preparing the coffee, putting out snacks to try to lure people to church. And then I'd play piano while my mom did nursery or was with the kids, and then we'd switch whoever was in nursery, whoever was with the kids, and then someone back out for piano, and then stay after service to clean up again, because there's different culture of, leaving trash out or putting trash away, so then cleaning it all up because there's no one else to clean, and they're all, new to church, so they don't know how to, respect an auditorium per se, so it's all of that afterwards, and then going home really quick, getting lunch, and then going back to church to do the same thing at night, and then during the week, just going with your parents on visits, outreach all day. Like Saturday was long days of outreach, of just walking the same streets over and over, but it's a beautiful thing. I remember one time my mom, she was trying to disciple girls, and we had no one in the church to really connect with them, and she just had this girl over, and after discipling her, it was a Sunday afternoon, she was like, go to Katie's room. So she comes up to my room, and we just stare at each other for 2 hours in silence. And I was like, I do not know how to connect with you, but I have to be your friend. And she ended up being my best friend as a teenager. So that's a lot of what it is. I think the hard part is eventually you have to come to a point in your life where you're doing all of that for God and not for your parents. Because it's easy to do all of that because it's your duty or your chore, or your parents expect you to do it. But you kind of have to come to a crossing road where it's like, this is an eternal work, and this is the Lord's work, and I need to have a heart for it. And so I think that's the challenge in that, duty versus service.
Absolutely, amen. I've got a question now for Darcy and Taylor, so if we could get them the mics. how can, and this is for y'all, so if you haven't been paying attention, this is the moment right here. Number 3 here. How can American churches better support and love missionary kids?
So I think one of the biggest things is don't be afraid to ask questions. We love talking about our countries, love talking about our experiences. I think also one of the hardest things is getting back and people ask you, how does it feel to be home? But in our hearts, we really don't feel like this is home. We feel like our countries are home. So maybe just loving us and welcoming us with open arms. I think also a hard thing moving back is not having a ministry, because you go from having every single ministry in the church, piano, kids, everything, to coming back and everybody already has their own ministry. So I think maybe just including us in ministries and stuff, I would say that's a big way to help us.
Yeah, I want to second pretty much everything she said. A big thing, I think, is just having conversations with missionary kids. It's just being intentional about, I'm going to go talk to them, because it's very scary coming back to America with a big church and everyone who seems super successful, even though you guys don't feel that way, but it's the way it appears to new missionary kids. So just being intentional, making conversations, even if we won't answer or are too scared to talk, but just being intentional, loving on us, reaching out while we're on the mission field too. I know Joanna Bush or Sonko now, but she would always just text me and send me letters, and it just really encouraged me, because I knew I had a friend here that when I came back I could talk to her. And just having those people who you know love you, and just preparing like we are for the Andersons for when they come back, and being ready of, okay, I'm going to talk to them when they get back, so they know that I love them. Just one conversation can really make their whole day, because they know that they have a friend here. So yeah, I would say just be intentional about that, and don't expect too much from them. While we do want to minister, we're also used to ministering a lot, so don't expect them to jump right in. Allow them time to heal and to adapt, and then we always love to help and minister.
All right, thank you. More of a controversial question here for Emily and Grace, so if we can get them the microphones. Many people assume furlough is just like a vacation for a missionary family. Is this true? Why or why not?
I would say, first of all, a missionary kid does have some very amazing opportunities. We get to travel and do things that most kids would not be able to do or would not have the opportunity to do, so that is definitely a great privilege, but I would definitely say it's not like a full-time vacation. Mark Coffee comes back quite a bit nowadays, but I don't know if you see him around quite often. We have to travel a lot. I love to visit our churches and strengthen those relationships I have there, and see different believers, but there's nothing like your home church, being with your family, worshiping and serving the Lord together. So it can be very difficult when you're outside of that all the time, when you have to still do school and do all your responsibilities, but you're in the car for 8 hours, or you're in 3 states away, or whatever it may be. So I would definitely say it's a great opportunity and privilege to see different churches and different parts of the country, but it definitely has its challenges, being away from your home and routine, and still having to do the normal kid stuff while traveling.
Yeah, definitely. I would not say it's a vacation. I think you can make furlough a lot of fun. Something with our family, we would go to different places because we're not really used to American culture or really know anything about it. When we would go to different states, we would always find something fun to do. And we would take our history class and maybe go to a museum and learn more about it in person and see different things. And so we are still traveling hours and hours to different churches. Churches are wanting to know, what have you been doing for the past couple years? And they ask you lots of questions, and you have to be ready for that. And so it can be intimidating, but we always had so much fun on furlough with my family. We would just go to so many different places in the United States. So yeah, I would just say that.
Absolutely. And we'll ask one final question. I think we have a few minutes here, so we might open it up. I don't know if I can get the green light on that. All right, perfect. We're going to go with the last question, if you guys want to go quick, so we can open the floor up to other questions for Hannah and Catherine here. For Hannah and Catherine, what has been the greatest learning experience that you have encountered that is specific to missionary kids?
I can't get the mute thing down. I think the life of the missionary kid is not it's not only unique to missionary kids. I think a lot of military children go through the same thing, and first-generation immigrant children go through a lot of the same things when it comes to just a lack of identity or figuring out cultures. But something that I think is unique to the missionary kid is that you have all of that, but then you add a very tangible spiritual warfare that I think the devil has mastered for missionary kids, because I think we're like a very vulnerable, weak link to attack a family. And I can become more acutely aware of it the more that I speak with missionary kids. It is really ugly, a lot of the things that missionary kids have to face at such a young age, and they're exposed to a lot of fears, dangers, and struggles that most kids living in a routine and more safe environment that isn't as chaotic aren't exposed to at such an early age. And so I think that is what is specific to a missionary kid, is you already have maybe some of these struggles that are not normal, but then you just add the devil really wanting to destroy your family and wanting to destroy the ministry, and he will do anything, and that means he will also attack the children. And I've seen that happen over and over, and I think that's why we see such polarizing reactions with missionary kids. Either you are head over heels in love with Jesus and want to serve him with everything you have because you've learned to cling to him and run to him, or you're bitter and you hate the mission field and you barely are in church anymore and you just want nothing to do with the Lord. And I think that has a lot to do with the devil's target on attacking us at such a young age. So I think that's what's specific to the missionary kid, and I would encourage everyone. When I was thinking about that last night, I was like, how often do I get on my knees and pray for missionary kids? And I think I would encourage us to pray in that direction for sure.
I'm not sure if mine's like like specific to missionary kids, but it's something that I learned is to fully trust God. You know, as Christians, it's something that we do. You know, salvation is faith. But my mom used to say, we trust God to save us, but do we trust him to pay the bills? Do we trust him in these little things? So learning to have faith that God's going to provide. I remember when we first got to Chile, we didn't have a car when we first got there, so we would take 2 buses and 1 taxi to get to church every Sunday. And that's not like a negative memory for me. I remember it being fun. But when we did get a car, it was like a blessing because, we could pick up people and take them to church and stuff. But at some point, this car stopped working. It would, we'd go to the mall for a family day, and it wouldn't start back up, and we'd have to get it taken to the shop, and it was in and out of the shop. Finally, the people were like, you were sold a lemon, you need to get a new car. So we did not plan to have to get a new car that soon. So, finances were tight. We were having to, try to scrape up money to buy a new car. So we were taking the buses and taxis again. And as a kid, I think a lot of people think, oh, you're a kid, you play, you don't worry about all the stress. But no, you see your parents stressed out. You feel the things they're going through. You can see it all happening. So that's the negative side of it. But the positive side is that we see our parents' faith, and we learn that through them. So I remember, we were praying for this money, for the last bit of money to get this car that we needed. And I was sitting in the living room with my dad, and I was watching something. He was on his computer, and he jumps up from the couch, and he starts going, Elizabeth, guess what? And I'm scared. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And he's like, somebody just sent us the last bit of money that we need for our car. He said, I got this random message from a guy, and the man was like, you don't know me, but God just laid it on my heart for you guys. I remember it was specifically $1,000, and that was all we needed for this car. And we got this car, and I saw my parents' faith turn into something that we needed. And then that car got stolen. So yeah, we came out from a family day in the mall, and our car was gone. It was not funny at the moment, but we can all look back and laugh at it, because once again, I saw my parents oh, we're back to the buses, we're back to the taxis, and it's not funny in the moment, but we're laughing about it now. And we had no hope to ever sit in that car again. Like, I remember spending hours at the police office, like, signing paperwork, filing reports, and, like, they basically told us, like, you're never going to see your car again. Like, it's gone. And then they found it abandoned on the side of the road, and we got that exact car back. So it's time after time after time. As Christians, again, we say we trust God. Faith is the base of what we believe. But I think in my personal life, I've really actually learned you do have to have faith, and you have to trust God for those tiny itty bitty things. Maybe it's big, trust God, bring our car back. But sometimes it's God. I've heard missionary stories from other missionary kids who are grown up. I remember one specific story. Somebody said that their dad was like, we can either get food right now, or we can pay for gas to get to this church. And all the kids were like, yeah, we need gas to get to the church. And they got to the church, and the pastor was like, hey, I'm going to take y'all out to eat, and you can pick, whatever you want. Because as missionary kids, you get the cheapest thing, You get the cheapest thing, you get the dollar menu. But the pastor was like, no, you get the combo. They went to Wendy's. You get a Frosty. So it's those little things, I think, that where I've learned that, faith and trust in God is so important. And without it, you are just this ball of anxiety and worry all the time. And missionary kids do go through that. It's missionary kids, but, those kids grow up, and they still feel those same struggles. But it's the learning to fully trust in God.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I am not sure. I'm trying to make eye contact with Pastor Trent here. Are we good to do a few questions, or are we running out of time here? Okay, perfect. Let's open up the floor. One question. All right. So we've got one lucky winner who's going to get to ask the question. Does anybody have any question for our wonderful panel up here? Not everybody at once here. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we're getting deep. Okay, what's a question that you like for people to ask you? Anybody can take it if you got a mic. Oh, no. What's a question that I like for people to ask me about being a missionary kid? Or when you come back from the field and you come to a church, there's questions that you don't like to get, like how do you feel to be home? But what's a question that you get excited when people ask? Yeah. How much money can I give you right now? I don't have a great. Does anybody have a great answer? I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer for this one.
The food. I love talking about Bolivian food. Actually, y'all might get to try some tonight. Me and Anna are going to make some Bolivian food. So that's exciting. But I love talking about food. Even landscape. Obviously, we love talking about the church, but, we live in beautiful countries with tons of culture, tons of amazing things. Also, families in the church. I think that was one of my favorite questions I heard today was friends and families, because we get to see those people, we get to live with those people, we get to see those stories, but y'all might not get to. So we love talking about our my Bolivian family.
Well, I fully agree with her on that. Culture's huge. I love talking about Chile, the people, the culture, the place, all these different things. I love talking about that. Anybody else want to add anything on here?
I think get excited with us when we talk about our country, because sometimes it's like you're so giddy because you just love it with everything in you, and people are just like, cool, and they just act like that. It's like, I'm sorry, I burdened you telling you about Chile, but that's all I want to talk about. So if you just get excited with us of that is so cool, that is amazing, even if you don't mean it, fake it. Because it makes us feel like we can share our heart. And it's hard sometimes to, all I want to talk about is certain things, but I know that everyone around me is like, we don't know those people, we don't know that place, we actually kind of don't care. And it's like, well, that's all I care about. So if you just act like you're so excited with us and try to be, I think that makes a really big impact for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to us. If we get applause for this panel here.